Welcome to Up All Night DIY. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. I have 3 Santa-centric projects for you today as part of the Santa's Coming to Town collab that I'm co-hosting with my friends Dawn of Shabby Meets Bling and Melissa of Merely Melissa. Lots of our talented friends are joining us. As always, you'll find the links for the host channels along with the playlist in the description box. Santa awaits. Let's get into it. I've seen several versions of this classic Santa, from ornaments to wall decor, tabletop pieces. I love this Santa personally, and I thought, well, I can make that with my Falcon 2 laser cutter. Easy. And you guys know that since I got this machine back in the summer, I've used it on the rag. And I happen to have had that aforementioned Santa in a clip art file. So I tinkered with it a wee bit and loaded it into my Falcon Design Studio, loaded my machine with 3mm basswood, and let the laser do its thing. I created 3 separate layers for the Santa design, and right here the laser is working on the inside, more elaborate parts of the design. It's actually cutting the 2 more elaborate layers all at one time. I love to watch this. I think it's absolutely fascinating. I'm always amazed at how fast it is. These 2 layers, the elaborate layers, done in less than 5 minutes. Couldn't believe it. Because, you know, they're a pretty good size. I think this is about 11 inches, so you would think it would take a little more time. So then I cut the background layer, and this only took barely a minute to do. So here we have all 3 layers. This is how it'll look when it's assembled. But first, we're going to paint the background layer with 2 coats of Americana Cherry Red. So I'm going to do this, pretty quickly because I want this to have a distressed vintage look. So I'm not going to be super fussy about coverage. Now that that's dry, I'm going to sand it to distress it. I hit this pretty hard in some areas because I want to get back down to the bare wood. And then I'm just wiping off all that loose dust with a paper towel, make sure it's nice and clean. Then I'm going to hit the edges with my Tim Holtz Vintage Photograph Distressing Ink. I want that worn, aged look, and I really think this ink adds that. I could have always done a stain over it, but I just felt like this was easier. You know what I'm saying? And now all I'm going to do to the top 2 layers, those more elaborate layers, is just add some of that ink to grunge it up a wee bit. So I'm just tapping it on. Now that that's done, I'm going to assemble it using my Tight Bond wood glue. If you're wondering what that noise is in the background, that's Yoshi. He's a little antsy tonight. Once he was all assembled, to finish him off, I speckled him with some raw sienna and some cherry red, and then I gave him a nice top coat of clear matte sealer spray, and he's all done. So quick and easy. Love him. Our second project is going to be a Santa knee hugger. Last year, I bought these vintage Santa faces from an Etsy shop called Chocolate Letters, but I never had the chance to use them, and I've really been itching to. And I have here some Model Magic as well. I'll also be using half of a 2.3 inch foam ball to round out his head, and I trimmed the sides to mimic the shape of his face with a serrated knife. I didn't want any overhang. For Santa's body, I've cut some red fleece into the appropriate sized rectangles. I'll list the sizes in the description box for you. We're also going to need a dowel, and I grabbed this Sherpa fabric at Michael's to recreate his beard and the fur trim. We're also going to need a couple of chenille stems too. Now, I've created a couple of knee huggers before, a snowman and a scarecrow. I'm going to link those videos for you along with the Etsy shop. The faces, they're they're hollow on the back, kind of like masks. So I'm going to fill in the back with some Model Magic clay to give them more body and support. This is nothing fancy. I'm just going to push some of that clay in there. I really don't care what the back of the clay looks like because we're not going to see that anyway. So it doesn't matter. You feel me? Once we get that filled, we can set that aside to dry. So here are the red fleece triangles that are going to make up his body. And I also cut a half a circle to create his hood. Now, I do wind up altering the shape of this later because I forgot to put a point, at the tip of the hood. So first things first, we're going to fold the largest fleece in half. This is his body section, and we're going to cut an X at the fold. This is where we're going to attach his head. His arms and legs are going to get folded in half lengthwise, and we're going to pin the edges. Over at the sewing machine, I'll do a straight stitch to close the ends. When I get to the bottom, I slightly curve my stitch to round off his hands and feet. And I keep the presser foot right at the edge of the fabric, keeping my stitch as close to the edge as possible. I stitch the back of the hood following the curve, keeping the presser foot lined up with the edge of the fabric. I still haven't figured out that the shape is wrong. Anyway, we're going to turn the legs and arms right side out, and I'm going to use the dowel to help me do that. It was pretty easy turning the fleece. The fleece has some give. So we're going to grab those chenille stems and slide them into his legs all the way down. And what I'm going to do is cut off about an inch or so of the stem because I want free space at the top of his legs so that I can stitch them to his body unimpeded. With the body fabric open to full length, I align the raw edge of his legs to the raw edge of his body, centering them and pinning them into place. I straight stitch them to the body, presser foot riding the edge. So now I'm going to push the legs through that X that we cut right there through the neckline. Just going to push those through, and then we're going to fold the fabric in half with the legs inside. So now I'm just going to bring the one end up to meet the other end, the end where the legs are sewn. And we're going to pin that edge and give that a straight stitch. I'm just going to go straight across here to close it off. Okay, so I push the arms through the X as well, aligning the raw edge of the arm with the edge of the body. I pinned them and straight stitch the sides closed. Again, presser foot riding the edge of the fabric. Now, I didn't realize my camera had turned off, but if you watch the snowman knee hugger video, you get a good view of what I just did in that video. Sorry guys, I apologize. Okay, I'm going to gently tug the legs and arms to turn the body right side out. Just pulling it through. And then I'm going to use my dowel to push out the corners of the bottom. See, I just want to make sure that those corners are forced all the way out, so we have a nice square finish at the bottom. See? And then I firmly stuff his body with some polyfill. So here I finally realized that I needed that point on his hood. All I did was trace out the original hood onto the fabric, and I added a wee point at the top, and then stitched it closed. I just basically followed the shape around. And I'm going to flip that right side out. So I cut a length of the Sherpa fabric, about 2 inches wide, to trim out his hood. I'll fold the trim in half over the edge of the hood, pinning it into place. Half of the Sherpa will be inside the hood and half will be on the outside, kind of like a binding. I left about an inch of overhang on both sides, and I folded the ends up to the inside to give a finished edge. And then I stitched the trim around the hood. Right, so the clay that we filled his face in with has dried. So now I'm going to use a little Fabrifix glue to adhere it to the plastic face. I'm going to put the glue on the face and then just pop the clay right over top of that. I break a toothpick in half and push the halves into the clay. This will help anchor the face to the foam ball. I'm also going to add some fabric glue to the foam ball and then push the pieces together, and I'll hold it in place until it sets. Now we're going to need to do a basting stitch along the bottom of the hood. I'm using some embroidery floss so that I can cinch it closed. And a basting stitch is just a simple in and out stitch. We're just going to go right along that bottom edge. I'm using embroidery floss just because it's stronger and hardier, so when I actually do the cinching, I'm not going to have to worry about my thread breaking. Before we cinch this up, we are going to stuff the hood with polyfill. I want to puff out the shape so that that point stands up. I poked a hole in the bottom of the foam ball with my dowel, and we're going to add some glue into the hole and reinsert the dowel and let that set. I place the head inside the hood, and I'm going to faff with it a little bit, see exactly where I want it to go, and then I'll tug the floss to cinch the hood closed around the dowel. I'm going to pinch the bottom of the hood where that little bit of overhang is to close it around his face, and I'm going to add some fabric glue to hold it together. And we're going to cinch it, tighten it up really good, and tie it off. Once it's tied, I'll cut those extraneous threads. I traced his beard shape onto a paper towel, and then I pinned the paper towel to some of that Sherpa, and we're going to cut that out, and then we're just going to glue that right below his lip. And I'm just adding the glue right along the top line there. That's all we really needed, and we'll wrap it around his face, making sure that it's where, his beard would be. So like I said, just below his lip. Again, I'll faff with it a little bit, make sure that it's well stuck. I glue another strip of the Sherpa down the front of his body. And I'm going to add a couple of green buttons too. Now we're going to add more glue to the dowel and slide the dowel into the body, making sure that his head is centered on his body. I put those buttons nice and low so that his beard wouldn't be obstructing them. To hide all the mechanics in the back, I'm going to trim the back of the neck opening with more of the Sherpa. I'm just gluing it into place. Time to position his arms. I've actually made them too long, which I think I did the last time too. You'd think I'd learn. Anyway, I'm going to glue them together. Well, I'm going to trim them down first, and then I'll glue them together. We want them to fit snugly over his bent legs. Oh yeah, I bent his legs up. That's why we have the chenille stems in there, so that the knees stay in place once you bend them. You feel me? Let's cover up where his hands connect with more of the Sherpa. I'm going to make him like a wee muff, just gluing it down. We'll add some green satin ribbon to embellish right around the center. And I did add a holly sprig to his muff and a white pom-pom to his head. You'll get to see him when he's all finished in the final reveal. For DIY 3, we're going to do a Santa boot assemblage. My friend Bern gave me this ceramic boot last year. She's a very talented ceramic artist and a real sweetie. I painted this with 2 coats of Ceramcoat white, and we're going to get a couple of coats of Ceramcoat watermelon onto the boot. I'm going to leave the top of the boot white just for the moment, and I'm going to paint around the holly and the buckle, leaving them white for the moment too. We'll come back and paint those in a minute. The holly leaves are going to get 2 coats of ceramic coat parsley. And I'm going to give the buckle 2 coats of Americana Sunset Gold. The holly berries get 2 coats of Americana Cherry Red. And the sole will get 2 coats of Ceramic Coat Hippo Gray. Out comes the floating medium. Let's add some shading and dimension. So I prep my brush with the medium, getting a healthy coat on the bristles. And I'm going to scoop up some festive green paint on the corner of my brush, side loading. I'll stroke the brush on my plate to blend the medium with the paint on the bristles. This gives us the gradient of color from dark at the corner, fading as it moves toward the center of the brush. I place the paint corner of my brush at the edge of the leaf where I want my darkest shadow. Basically, I'm just outlining it, and I'm going to reload my brush as needed. The boot will get an Americana Cherry Red float. I start around the top edge, and then I'm going to move to the cast creases on the boot where it looks a wee bit droopy in places. And we're going to shade around the sole too. This is going to give it some dimension, some movement, some depth. A few highlights on the leaves with Ceramic Coat Palmetto. To get that true retro dime store flavor, we're going to need some glitter. So I apply some Mod Podge to the buckle and sprinkle on some gold glitter. The chunkier the glitter, the better. The berries will also get some glitter, this time red. And as soon as I get that glitter on there, I am going to seal this by spraying it with clear gloss spray to give it that authentic mid-mod ceramic look. We will add some snow text to the white band at the top of the boot to pump up that vintage vibe. I'm just going to apply a light layer with a stiff old paintbrush, just enough to give it some texture. And once I get it on there, I'm going to shake on some chunky diamond dust, for good measure. Cool. So now that the boot is done, we're going to make a couple of doodads for it. Let's grab a handful of Mod Magic, condition it by kneading it, and we're going to roll a ball for the head of our wee snowman character. I've rolled out a cone-shaped party hat. It's kind of Hershey Kiss-esque. Let's push half a toothpick in the center of the ball and pop the cone over it. And as always, I'm going to incorporate it by rolling over the seams with the handle of my tool. Then we can set this aside to dry overnight. Now that he's dry, his head gets 2 coats of Ceramic Coat White, and his hat is going to get 2 coats of Americana Sour Apple, which is a wee bit brighter than the parsley. Some watermelon dots for his hat. He gets Tropic Bay cheeks to add some frostiness. Then he'll get some smaller red dots in his cheeks, and we're also going to give him a cute wee red mouth. I'm going to stamp on his eyes with this little scoopy tool using Hippo Gray. It makes the perfect little arched eyes. Let's add some white dot highlights to his features and to the dots on his hat. A red metallic pipe cleaner to trim his hat. I have here a wee glittery pipberry. I'm going to use that for his nose. I'm just going to push that into place. I cut this off of, a strand of pipberries. I'll make his body from some lengths of white tinsel rope and a lollipop stick. So the tinsel rope is just like, thicker pipe cleaner, really. I have a 3-inch length that I'm going to line up with one end of my lollipop stick. And I'm going to wrap another piece of the tinsel rope around it, affixing the 2 pieces together. Now we're going to twist another of the lengths around the stick, perpendicular, to create his arms, and another to create his legs. Just a quick twist. push his head on, and I'm going to wrap another red pipe cleaner around his neck, and our snowman doodad is done. Right, so I have a 2.5 inch cardstock circle, and I'm going to glue 2 mini cupcake wraps to this. I just flattened them out. One's going to go on the front, and one's going to go on the back to make a little metallic medallion. I'm going to add a stick between the layers so that we can attach this to our boot. And in the center, we're going to pop on this vintage graphic. I added a little glitter around the edge of it, to jazz it up. Let's construct our assemblage. So first, this Merry Christmas sign. This is from the Dollar Tree. I just added a stick to the back. And we'll set our snow dude here on the corner. And I'm going to give him a wee vintage bulb to hold. Our little metallic medallion next. Just put this back here. Looks good. And we need a bottle brush, of course. I also got this at the Dollar Tree. I added the beads. They're beads from Dollar Tree Christmas necklaces. And we have some mini balls here. We're just going to pop them in the front and a sweet wee lolly in the back. I'm going to fill in all the gaps with this Dollar Tree cheapy tinsel garland that I love. It's got such a retro vibe. And that'll do it, kids. Shall we take a final look at today's projects? Here's our classic Santa. I love how this turned out. I love it so much. I saw this Santa in multiple forms at a craft fair recently. Prices ranged from $25 to $40. I made this for about $2.50. And it was so quick and easy with my Falcon 2 laser cutter. I absolutely love mine. If you're looking for a reliable, easy to use laser engraver cutter, check out the links in my description box. I know that Creality is offering discounts for Black Friday, and heads up, if you do purchase through my link, I will receive a wee commission at no cost to you. Anyway, I love this guy. How about you? This cutie Santa knee hugger is going to fit in perfectly with my vintage elf pixie knee huggers. I'm really pleased with him. I'm so happy that I finally got to use one of those vintage faces. Again, I'll link the Etsy shop for you. I don't know if they still have these, but they may have something similar if they don't have these specific ones. But let me know what you think. I love him. I think he is very much like those rubber face plush Santas. And finally, good old St. Nick's boot assemblage. Retro fun, tucked into a festive wee boot. I absolutely love assemblages, as I'm sure you know, because I make plenty of them. I just find them fascinating, really festive. You can tuck them in anywhere. They're just such a joy to look at. You know what I'm saying? I want to thank Dawn and Melissa for co-hosting, and to all of our talented friends for joining us. Links for the host channels, as well as a link to the playlist, will be in the description box, along with the Creality links for the discounts and a list of supplies. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. I'll see you next time. Up all night with Monica.